In this lesson, you're going to learn about the different keeping qualities of foods and how foods that are called potentially hazardous require more care. Sometimes these foods are referred to as readily perishable or high-risk foods. Some call it dodgy stuff. Potentially hazardous foods must be kept at safe temperatures, which is either below 5 degrees Celsius or above 60 degrees Celsius. Safe temperatures minimise the growth of harmful germs that could be present in or on the food, or to prevent toxins, that's poisons, also forming in the food. The aim is to ensure that all potentially hazardous foods meet the safe temperature control requirements in your food control plan. In the FCP, food that meets the following criteria is considered potentially hazardous. The food may contain harmful germs that could multiply in order to cause illness, and the food will support the growth of such harmful germs. And the food will be made unsafe or unsuitable if it is kept at temperatures that allow harmful microbes to grow. Food that must be kept under temperature control to prevent toxin formation is also referred to as potentially hazardous. For example, some dark flesh fish such as salmon, tuna and mackerel need to be kept chilled as soon as they are caught, up until they are cooked, to prevent histamine development. Histamine causes allergy symptoms. Examples of potentially hazardous foods are raw and cooked meat, or foods containing raw or cooked meat. For example, these include casseroles, curries, lasagna, and meat pies. Dairy products, or foods containing dairy products, such as custard and dairy-based desserts. Seafoods, both cooked or raw, and foods containing seafood, but not living seafoods, such as lobsters in tanks or mussels in brine spray tanks. Processed fruits and vegetables, such as salads, and unpasteurized juices and cut vegetables. Cooked rice and pasta. Processed foods containing eggs, beans, nuts, or other protein-rich food, with examples like quiche and soybean products. And foods that contain any of the above, such as sandwiches, rolls, wraps, and pies. Many foods do not rely on temperature control for safety because they have been processed to ensure that harmful germs are not present in the food, or the food itself can't support growth of germs. These foods are not considered potentially hazardous and are sometimes referred to as shelf-stable, although they also include frozen foods. Food manufacturers usually achieve food safety by one of the following methods: destroying the harmful germs and then packaging the food so it cannot be contaminated, such as canned and bottled food. Creating conditions so the food does not support the growth of harmful germs, and some ways to do this are to make the food too acidic for germs to grow. This is referred to as pickling. Reducing the available water in the food by drying or freezing the food, or by adding salt and sugar, which is referred to as preserving. Using food additives that inhibit germ growth, or a combination of these things, such as dried fruit, salted dried meats, and fermented dried meats. Some food processes kill or reduce the number of harmful germs. The food is then further processed to deter those harmful germs from growing again. For example, processed foods like cheeses, spreads, sauces, dried pasta, pasteurized juices, breads, dried milk, dried custard powder, and so on. Although such processed foods are not considered to be potentially hazardous, they may become so when the food package is opened or the food is changed in some way. For example, a can of beef stew should be considered potentially hazardous once it's opened, and custard powder should be considered potentially hazardous once milk or water is added. Many raw, unprocessed or semi-processed foods are also not considered as potentially hazardous because they do not support the growth of harmful germs. Examples of these are raw whole fruits and vegetables, uncooked rice, flour and sugar, or the food has a protective shell, such as unshelled nuts and eggs.